but since I have two heads today,
Yeah, nice. I'll take this seat on the far side. No problem. Yeah, and should we take this first seat? We'll do this thing.
I'll just do a little quick introduction. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Hill Center this evening. My name is Eli Campbell. I'm the programming coordinator here. Can I ask quickly how many of you haven't been to Hill Center before? All right, good. Well, that is a nice number. We hope that you guys want to come back, enjoy the building here, enjoy our art galleries as well. You can check out upcoming events, including events with Bill Press in the program that you found on your seat. I believe the next guest is former Governor Terry McAuliffe of Virginia, so that will be a good one as well. But now I would like to introduce Mr. Bill Press and Mr. Tom Perez.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks, Eli, very much. Good evening, everybody. Great to see you. Thanks for coming out, and it's nice to see such a big crowd for the chairman, Mr. Tom Perez. Eli mentioned a couple of upcoming events. I wanted to plug also on March 27, which is not that far away. I have a new book out next week called From the Left, Life in the Crossfire. And we're just going to have a party here, wine and cheese and a party, a reception. So everybody's welcome to come, and we'll have a few guests and maybe a few remarks or whatever, but it's just an open book party. So March 27, mark it down. And then on April 16, right, April 16 is a former chair of the Democratic Party and former governor of Virginia now, Terry McAuliffe, will be here for our program. So, he is a live wire, Terry McAuliffe for sure.
A lot of energy.
So you know how it works. Well, maybe all of you don't because you haven't all been here before, but we have just about a little less than an hour with the chairman because today is a very important day in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And he will be heading off to CNN to Crow. Well, no, I don't mean that, but we hope to talk about the results.
Amen.
So we'll spend the first part in conversation and then open it up to all of you as well. Try to go about 50-50. So let's just jump right in. Pennsylvania, 18. What do you hear? What's the turnout? What are the prospects? What's your gut tell you?
Well, we had a big upset victory last year in Alabama. People said we couldn't win it. This district, Donald Trump won by 19 points. And you look at the polling that's been out there over the last few days, and Connor Lamb is inched ahead. And, here's what it's all about, Bill. Number one, we have a superb candidate. I met Connor when I was the head of the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department, and we were doing work in Pennsylvania. And Connor was a new assistant U.S. attorney. I remember we had lunch together. I had a soda, and he had muscle milk. So I knew he was a different breed of character. And
I don't even know what muscle milk is.
I know, neither do I. I've never had it. As you can tell, I've never had it. And, so I think the reason why we're in a position to score an upset victory, again, is we have the right candidate. He's speaking about the issues that people care about. They care about good jobs. The linchpin in this district that's going to swing it to Connor is a lot of union members. Connor, there was a rally the other day in Greene County. Greene County, there's 4 counties in this district. Greene County is coal country. Cecil Roberts is the head of the United Mine Workers, a good friend. And they've been fighting for pension reform for years. And his opponent has been fighting against it. And Connor is fighting for it. So union members who have, in the last 10 years, gone pretty consistently for the Republican candidates are all for Connor. Steel workers, the mine workers. Why? Because he's fighting for them. So that's why when you field good candidates, when you organize and organize early and organize everywhere, and when you speak to the issues that people care about, he talks about health care. Because once again, when you're trying to repeal Obamacare, as these folks are doing, and his opponent supported a bill in the Pennsylvania State House to help more jobs go to foreign countries, to allow them to build their buildings with foreign-made steel. He just doesn't represent the district, and we have a great candidate, and we're organized, and we've been proud to kind of help him behind the scenes. So I think he could score an upset.
So this is a microcosm, in a way, of 2018 and the challenge that Democrats face. Particularly, you mentioned with union members, working families, many of whom did go for Donald Trump because they thought he had a message that spoke more to them than the Democratic nominee in 2016. So are there lessons that we learned in 2016 that are being applied in this district and will be, you see, in terms of a message to working blue-collar
Well, I think
old Reagan Democrats, they used to call them.
I think there's a couple lessons. Number one, we have to organize and organize everywhere. We frankly didn't show up in all too many places across America. We had a number of cycles in this district, in Connor's district, District 18, where we didn't field a candidate in recent years. We seeded the district. Hard to win when you don't field a candidate, in my experience. And so we've been organizing everywhere. That's a big lesson we learned. And we're speaking to the issues that keep people up at night. In Virginia, we won that race because we were speaking for the fact that Democrats believe that health care is a right for all and not a privilege for a few. And they were trying to take health care away from people. I think that is morally bankrupt to take health care away from people. And you know what? The number one issue for voters by far in Virginia was health care. And it was wonderful to have an authentic physician at the top of the ticket. And so I think those are the two keys. Speaking to the issues that people care about and organizing early, organizing everywhere.
One issue that we know, the Republicans, at the end of last year, they really rushed through the tax cut bill because they felt they needed a win for 2017 and they needed an issue for 2018. So now we come to Pennsylvania 18. Because I've been tracking this. For the first 2 weeks in February, the ads that the Republican Party were running were all about the tax cut bill, this is your answer, we did this for you. And suddenly, they haven't talked about them since. The last 4 weeks, there's not been a word about the tax cuts in their advertising because they discovered this tax cut bill is not maybe such a great gift to the American people.
Well, that dog won't hunt. The notion that this tax cut bill is helping ordinary Americans, this tax cut bill is an abomination. It is horrific for ordinary Americans.
So do you think it'll work in 2018 for them?
Well, I don't think so. I think people understand. Go to Wisconsin, where I was recently. Kimberly Clark got something like $700 million in tax relief from the tax cut. The vast majority of it went to stock buybacks for their shareholders, which artificially inflated their stock value. And then what did they do next? They laid off. They announced layoffs of something like 5,000 employees, including 600 workers in Wisconsin alone. That was what they got for this. And so I think it's really important for us to talk about the fact that this is a promissory note that our children and grandchildren are going to have to pay for. And by the way, make no mistake about it, because Paul Ryan has been pretty transparent about it. Next up, Medicaid cuts, Medicare cuts, Social Security. And he's going to come to you and say, we have to. We can't afford it. We don't have the money. Well, why? Because you eliminated the estate tax. You gave this reckless tax cut to corporations that didn't need it and mega wealthy people that didn't deserve it.
Let's stick with breaking news. For my show, we have a conference call about 5 o'clock in the afternoon where we kind of put the show to bed for the next morning. You've been on the show, thank you, Mr. Chairman, many times. And so we review the guest and we talk about the issues, and then we say, okay, we can put that to bed. No, you can't, not with Donald Trump.
There's still 12 more hours.
Yeah, exactly. Because it was about 5:15 yesterday afternoon actually, it was in the middle of our show this morning, while we're thinking a show that we thought we were going to do, suddenly Rex Tillerson is fired. What message does that give you about this administration?
Well, it's scary. I mean, we're in the middle of negotiations with North Korea, very rogue nation. And you fire the Secretary of State. A week ago, we're talking about very serious economic issues, and the chief economic advisor is gone. And what it bespeaks is an administration that is totally bereft of any process that can lead to the right policies. It's a ready, fire, aim form of governance, and that is a reckless form of governance. When Rex Tillerson learns about his firing via Twitter, that speaks for itself, Bill, and it just makes me worry about our nation. Everything he does, it creates problems because there is no process, and he has these these meetings, which are no more than theater. He has the meeting on common sense gun safety, where he purports to support it, and then a couple hours later meets with the NRA. He has a meeting about the DREAM Act, and he does the same thing. He on the tariff issue, he ends up including all these other countries. We know the tariff issue, the culprit is China, plain and simple. Target it, make it surgical. And instead, he enrages our European allies, and guess what? They're going to retaliate and hurt U.S. workers, whether it's Harley Davidson or elsewhere. This is reckless, and it's dangerous, and it's incompetent.
The Democratic National Committee came to town this week.
We did.
And one of the things that the DNC did was to pass a resolution about superdelegates. You've been studying this since the last convention, but this commission was formed. As I recall, Bernie Sanders made some appointments, Hillary Clinton did, and you did,
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, right? So you've been studying it for over a year, and you passed a resolution to reduce the influence of superdelegates. Mm-hmm. After a year and a half, that's as far as you could go, reduce the influence? Why didn't you just cut them out?
Well, Bill, this is what the process set forth. Okay, first of all, one thing is clear, and this was what we said last weekend. The status quo on many issues is unacceptable. The status quo on superdelegates is unacceptable. We need to reduce the influence of superdelegates. The status quo
and the number
on reducing the influence will include reducing the number. The status quo on things like caucuses is unacceptable. You shouldn't have to win the boss lottery in Las Vegas to be able to vote in a caucus. If you work for Steve Wynn or Sheldon Adelson, you don't get to go. If you work for Jim Murin over at MGM, he gives you paid time off. That is not how you should be able to exercise your right to vote. So the charge from the 2016 convention gave the DNC, once the Unity Commission had completed its work, and they completed their work shortly before Christmas of last year, it gave the DNC Rules and Bylaws Committee, that's our committee that does the reform work, it gave them 6 months to review the report and come up with concrete recommendations. So they've had it, Bill, for a little over 2 months, and they've been meeting actively. And I'm proud of what they did last weekend, because they made a very concrete, bold statement that we are going to be reforming our process. And we're doing it because we have to make sure that we're earning the trust of voters. We've got a lot of millennials who share our values, but they don't want to necessarily have the Democratic label, and we've got to earn that trust. We have other folks who are concerned that superdelegates have an undue influence on the process. And our message from last weekend is we hear you. And what the committee will be doing in the next 2 to 3 months, and that'll be ahead of their 6-month limit, is they're going to be operationalizing the principles that we put forth, the bold principles, I think, that we put forth last weekend. And then everybody will have, not just the DNC members, the public at large will have an opportunity to review the particular changes that people are making, because we want your views. We don't simply want the views of the 447 DNC members. We want to have that process so that our next meeting, make no mistake about it, we will be voting on the package of final reform.
And those recommendations will include some changes in the influence and number of superdelegates, right?
Correct.
You mentioned caucuses. Do you feel that caucuses are fair? I mean, they do, I think we all know how they work. You go to a caucus, you don't just walk in and vote. You go to a caucus, you're there for 2 or 3 hours, and not everybody has that opportunity, that much time.
Well, what will happen, Bill, is, and what is happening already, is that the number of states moving from a caucus to a primary is increasing. And so the reality, I predict, at the end of the day, is that the states that will be doing caucuses are states that will not, their state won't pay for a primary. So it tends to be smaller states. Mm-hmm. The largest states with caucuses come 2020 will probably be Iowa and Nevada. That's because, again, a number of other states have moved. And equally importantly, though, and these get overlooked because people tend to focus on superdelegates, there are a lot of reforms that are designed to make it easier for eligible people to vote. The Republican Party, their linchpin, or one of their linchpins, is to make it harder for eligible people to vote. And we're doing a number of things that are designed to make sure that every state is doing their level best to have early voting whenever you can, to make it easier for folks to vote. A number of other reforms that I think are they're not as often discussed, but
Right.
I think they're indispensable to the effective functioning of our democracy.
Early voting, add to the list, same-day voter registration.
Right. Making sure that, for instance, in New York State, if you want to vote in the primary that's coming up this September, I believe, you have to, and you want to change your party affiliation, you have to have completed that party affiliation change, I think, in 2017. That's nuts.
Yeah.
And we need to change that. And we need to do that yesterday. And these are examples of reforms that our report calls for. And they're all designed to make it easier for folks to vote, to make it more inviting for folks to participate, and to enhance trust. Because, we were rebuilding our infrastructure, but we also have to rebuild trust.
Let's take a look at 2018. First of all, at the state legislative level, what do you see in terms of
Well, I see
activity?
progress. I mean, it's been great, Bill. I mean, you look at
Candidates,
what's happened.
momentum.
You look at what happened in 2017, and then put aside, obviously, the gubernatorials in Virginia and New Jersey. And by the way, the last time we won both those states' governor's races in the same year was 2005. And you all know what happened in 2006. Alabama was obviously the upset of the year, and we were proud to have invested very early in Doug's race. In addition, though, 4 seats in Oklahoma, special elections there, in beat red Trump districts. And what the candidates had in common is they were spectacular, and they spoke to the issues that people were concerned about. In Oklahoma, it was education. And you see, we've had special election after special election. Kentucky recently won an election there in a district that Trump won by, I think, over 30 points. A special election in New Hampshire, special election down in Florida, another one. So 39 in total where we've been able to flip races. And the 2020 landscape, I think I'm very optimistic because the candidates that are coming forward, again, are spectacular. I think we can win a number of governor seats, and that's critically important because it's a 13-year election cycle this year because of redistricting. Whoever's in control of the governor's residence is playing a critical role in redistricting. That's why Ralph Northam and Phil Murphy's victories were so indispensable. I think we can do a lot there. The new DNC's mission is to help elect Democrats up and down the ballot, from the school board to the Oval Office. I was with the Democratic municipal officials this morning. These are local mayors from around the country. Again, the old DNC had kind of a faith-based approach to their campaigns. We'd pray that you win. And the new DNC is investing in helping them and providing tools.
Right. So do you believe that, would you use the phrase, if you look at the state legislative races and the possibility of taking back the House and maybe even the possibility of taking back the Senate, is this going to be a blue wave election?
I think we have a real possibility of that. And I look around the country, and I've traveled the country. We've got tremendous opportunities in the U.S. Senate. We've got great candidates in Nevada and Jackie Rosen, in Arizona and Kirsten Sinema, in Tennessee, in the former governor, Phil Bredesen. People ask why I was so invested in Alabama. Aside from the fact I've known Doug for 20 years, I wanted to make a very strong statement that we were going to compete everywhere. And frankly, the difference between a 52-48 Senate and a 51-49 Senate heading into this election where we're playing a lot of defense is enormous. And the good news about all the areas where we're playing defense is that in every race, bar none, we have the perfect candidate for that state. And so I think we can make tremendous progress. I think we can take both the House and the Senate. We have to work hard. We can never let our guard down. We're the underdog in the Senate because we're playing more defense. But we were the underdog in Alabama, and we've been the underdog elsewhere.
How secure is the DNC today from foreign hacking?
Well, our new chief cybersecurity officer is a guy named Bob Lord. Bob Lord used to be the CISO, as we call them, at a small company called Yahoo. Our new CTO, Chief Technology Officer, is a guy named Rafi Krikorian. Rafi was the 25th employee at Twitter, small company back then, and he built their back-end infrastructure. One of the things that excites me the most about what we're doing at the DNC is the talent we've been able to recruit. If you're trying to turn around an agency or an organization that's broken, you got to be a good listener and you got to recruit good talent. And with Bob, and I used to say to people, I was praying to God that we'd be able to fix our cyber problem and praying for help, and he brought me the Lord. And so I felt very good about that. And Bob has instilled a discipline. You should know, by way of background, about 2 or 3 weeks into his tenure, they discovered a massive breach in Yahoo. And it was the Russians. And they actually found a number of them and prosecuted them. So he has very granular knowledge of not only hacking, but Russian hacking. And so I will never promise to anyone that we will never get hacked again, because I think that is that someone will never attempt to hack again, because first of all, they were successful. Secondly, we have a president that doesn't care. And so of course they're going to try again, but we're doing our level best. And I think we have a great team in there that's helping us fortify.
We have a president who encouraged them to hack some more.
That is true. And every passing week in this Mueller investigation, we learn about this. I mean, the most serious threat to the integrity of elections is Russian hacking. And it's just unconscionable that to this day, he has not directed the Russians. He's directed the Russians a lot. He hasn't directed anybody in the administration to take affirmative action. That is just amazing to me. They spend so much time talking about the need for voter ID laws to combat this phantom voter fraud issue. And we all know those laws are just designed to make it harder for African Americans and Latinos to vote. If they cared about voting, they'd be focused on this issue, voter integrity and the Russians.
Now, you were not there at the time, so I'm not coming after you on this question. But one thing we did learn from the hacking was that the DNC, some of the staff at least, were tilted during the primary, and were attempting to tilt the DNC toward Hillary Clinton's campaign and not so friendly toward Bernie Sanders. Can candidates looking in 2020 have confidence, or even 2018, that the DNC it'll be a level playing field?
Well, that's certainly my goal, and I would say absolutely, because let's face it, Bill, we fell short in many ways in 2016. We fell short in terms of making sure that everybody felt that the candidate they were supporting got a fair shake. We fell short, equally importantly, in making sure that the candidate who won the primary, whoever that was going to be, had the proper organizing and technology infrastructure to succeed. Their technology infrastructure in 2018, their ability to micro-target and do all the things you need to do to win elections in the modern era was far better than our ability. And so we fell short in both of those ways. And what I've said vis-a-vis 2018 and 2020 is we have a twofold mission. Number one is to make sure the process is fair to everyone, fair in fact and fair in perception. And number two, equally importantly, again, to make sure that whoever wins has the tools to win the job.
So what is the role of the DNC in helping these candidates? How do you see the role of the DNC? Is it raising the money? Is it recruiting the candidates? Is it developing the message?
Sure. Well, are you referring to presidential
Your job.
candidates?
No. Well, yeah, particularly presidential.
Yeah, and as it relates to the presidential campaign, we will obviously be organizing the primary debate schedule, which is a very important function of the DNC. Our Rules and Bylaws Committee is preparing the entire set of rules that will govern the nomination process, and that's why sometimes I hear people say, well, you need to hurry up and get it done yesterday. This is 2020. We're talking about the presidential election. We're going to have it done, as we move forward this year. But all those rules come out of the very meticulous deliberations of our Democratic Party. And we want to make sure, again, that everybody feels like they have a fair shake. And so what we then do is we're out there with prospective candidates, making sure we communicate what we're doing, and as time goes on, getting that feedback from people about what else we need to do to make the process fair.
A sensitive question, given this gray hair, but
At least you have hair, Bill. I'm envious.
when you look at across the field at some potential candidates for 2020, and I'm not going to ask you to name who your favorite is at this time. You shouldn't answer.
I would violate the oath I just took.
Exactly.
If I were to do that.
But
I love them all.
The front runners, Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, all in their mid to late 70s. If you look at the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, James Clyburn, Steny Hoyer, all in their late 70s. How do you feel about the Democratic Party needing some younger faces and new blood?
Well,
is that a problem for the party?
I think having worked for a person like Joe Biden, age is a state of mind. He was tireless when I worked for him, and he continues to be tireless, traveling the entire nation. I've seen people who are 30 years his younger who don't have half the energy of Joe Biden. So age is an imperfect proxy for a lot of things. And I feel that more and more the older I get. Parenthetically. Here's what there's going to be double digits.
It is a perception issue. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, but look at how Senator Sanders has gotten such a remarkable following among young people, which some might argue is counterintuitive. And so again, here's the thing. We're going to end up with double-digit figures in folks running for president. And they're going to span a wide range of experiences, age, gender, perspective. And I think that's spectacular because what I've learned from people in my travels so far, Bill, is they want to make sure that everybody has a fair shake, and they're excited about the opportunity to kick the tires on a number of candidates that they've never met before. And I'm confident that it's going to be a robust process, and we're working hard to make sure it's a fair process. And I think it's going to be an exciting process because I'm telling you, I've met and worked with a lot of folks who may run, and to a person, they are remarkable.
The rap that I hear so much today about the Democratic Party is that, even from some Democrats, I might add, is that the Democratic Party has no message other than we don't like Donald Trump, and he's a terrible president. He's the worst we've ever had, but that only gets you so far. Is there a coherent, working Democratic message?
Well, I think, I've been a Democrat my whole life because the Democratic Party always had people's backs on the issues that mattered most to people. FDR was a freedom fighter. He had people's backs on Social Security. You look at LBJ, he had people's backs on civil rights. The Democratic Party, you look at the social compact of the 20th century, the Democratic Party built that social compact. We won in Virginia because we had people's backs on health care. We won those special elections in Oklahoma because we had their back on education. We believe actually that the Secretary of Education ought to believe in public education. And we have people's backs on dreamers. And I think when people are looking at who they're going to vote for, they look at those values, and they look at the issues that matter most to them, and they ask the question, does she share my values, or does he share my values? And when I talk to folks about this, that's what I focus on is, we've had people's backs on all the issues that have mattered most, and we are the party. The biggest difference between us and the other party is, I think, pronouns. We've always been the party of we. We all succeed only when we all succeed. We're at our best when we're working together and not turning against each other. And that's how Barack Obama put hope on the ballot.
Great. I want to ask you, one final question, and get ready. But I looked back at the last 8 years under President Obama, and how the party fared. So let me just bore you with some numbers.
Got our butts kicked.
Yeah. There were, when So this is all between when he took office and when he left office. We had Democrats had 29 governors, 17 when he left office. During that time, 30 different state house chambers were lost and 910 legislative seats flipped from Democrat to Republican. The Senate went from 57 plus 2 Democrats, the 2 independents, and 41 Republicans to 54 Republicans and 44 plus 2 Democrats, basically reversed it. And then the House, as you know, equally lopsided, went from 257 Democrats and 178 Republicans. When President Obama left, 247 Republicans and 188 Democrats. So on every level during those 8 years, Democrats lost ground significantly. What do we do? Lose our eye? I mean, lost our eye on the ball, or President Obama just didn't care?
Well, I mean,
How
there are
do
a
you
number
read
of factors. I mean, when you have to do hard things, as the president did in passing the Affordable Care Act, we knew there would be consequences to that. The Koch brothers spent millions and millions of dollars to message the Affordable Care Act as a job killer, And the irony is that now the Affordable Care Act, as they are trying to take it away, they fell victim to the don't ever believe your own propaganda, because they started believing that it was a job killer and all that. And that's why they're losing elections, because people wanted it. So there were undeniable consequences politically in 2010 to the passage of the Affordable Care Act. We got shellacked, I think was what the president said.
Yeah, he did.
But that's not I don't think that's the end of the equation, Bill. We stopped organizing. You know, politics became all too transactional. I've spent a lot of time studying this question, and I study it by going out to listen to people. The woman I met at an AME church who said to me, you know, you can't show up every 4th year at my church telling me, every 4th October at my church telling me that you care. You know, we stopped showing up in rural America. Again, Joe Biden talks, all politics is personal, and it became too transactional. So when we stopped organizing, we stopped winning. When we squandered our technology advantage, the other side, post-2012, they spent roughly $175 million on tech modernization, while we were spending somewhere in the $15 to $20 million range. And so by 2016, they gained a decided edge. They leapfrogged us. The good news is that we've been turning it around because we studied the game film. We spent a lot of time asking that precise question. And what we have done is, number one, redefine our mission. We're not simply the party that elects the president every 4 years. We're the party of every cycle, every year. There is no off year. And our mission is to elect Democrats up and down the ticket, from the school board to the Senate. Our partnership with our state parties, we call it every zip code counts. We are competing everywhere. Why? Because we can win everywhere if we lead with our values. And I told you the folks we're hiring on our tech team, we've been able to build tech tools and partnerships that are going to enable us, I think, to leapfrog the other side. So, and then finally, we're leading with our values. Our message is not just we're against Trump. Our message is that we're for health care. We believe that immigrants and dreamers are every bit as American as my U.S.-born children. We believe that everybody should have access to opportunity. And when we do all these, we start winning, and we're seeing it happening.
Mr. Chairman, thanks for coming. Thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Hands up. I saw that one first, and I see you back here. Yeah.
So the scariest thing you have not discussed, judges, and what happens in gubernatorial races and House races and state legislature races in 2018 is largely irrelevant. So in the short run. So I want to ask you about 2 cases. They happen to be Supreme Court cases, and they happen to deal with political gerrymandering and public union checkoffs.
Janice in Wisconsin.
Yeah, so I would like to know how you think those 2 cases will come out, and if they come out adverse to Democrats, how damaging will they be?
Sure. For the benefit of
do you want to
the audience, there are 2 I think that, with all due respect, I think the two most important cases in the Supreme Court this term, maybe I'll say two of the most important cases, are the cases that you are mentioning. The Janus case is out of Illinois, and it involves public sector labor unions and the right to collect dues from their members. And it's not the right to collect dues for political purposes. It is well settled that if you're a union member and you don't want to pay dues, you don't have to pay dues. This is the right to collect agency fees, so that if you get a disciplinary action against you, that it goes to helping you defend yourself. And so it's the administration of day-to-day work of the union. And I regrettably have a rather firm sense of how that will go, because there was an identical case 2 years ago in 2016, and I went to the oral argument because I was a labor secretary and I care a lot about this case. And we're going to lose that case. I said after 2016, called some friends in the labor movement and said, we're going to lose this case. And then Justice Scalia passed away. And then the 9th seat was stolen by the Republicans. And the person who replaced Justice Scalia, frankly, is to the right of Justice Scalia. So I have little doubt about the outcome of this. And it's going to make it harder for public sector labor unions to organize. But you know what? They're tough, and they're not going to give up the fight. And we're going to keep organizing. The second case involves partisan gerrymandering. And I'll give you a very quick, concrete example. Barack Obama won Pennsylvania by 5.5 points in 2012. The 18 Democrats running for the 18 districts in Pennsylvania won over 50% of the vote collectively. And they won 5 out of 18 seats because they were so hyper gerrymandered that they needed to win something like 58 or 57% of the vote just to get to 9-9. That ain't right. Voters should be picking their elected officials. Elected officials shouldn't get to pick their voters. And the Supreme Court is handling a similar case out of Wisconsin. I think we're going to win that case. And we're going to win that with Justice Kennedy being the swing vote. And I'll tell you, folks, when we win that case, I'm not asking for gerrymandering on the left. I'm just asking for a level playing field. We will be able to take back, I think we can take back the House this year. But I'm telling you, the example I gave you in Pennsylvania, I could give you examples in Ohio and Wisconsin and elsewhere, because it is an absolute scourge on our democracy. And I think the Supreme Court is finally going to do something about it.
Mm-hmm. Do we have a question here? Yeah, please.
Hi, I'm concerned about your optimism regarding the tax bill. I guess August, before the election, I went on a tour that was filled with people from the Rust Belt. And all of a sudden I realized we were in trouble. I mean, they've lost jobs, they see no future, no one is going after them to retrain for future kinds of jobs. And a lot of these people were from Pennsylvania. And I've looked at all the statistics on what people's tax bills will be like in April. And the group that we're after will have lower tax bills. It doesn't matter about the long range results. Or the immediate thing is they still don't have jobs and they've gotten a little relief on taxes. And I'm wondering what you're going to do to combat those feelings.
Sure, I think it's a really important question. And the American people are really smart, and they understand the basic notion of fairness. And when you have a massive tax cut that is going to result in very large businesses getting multi-hundred million. I talked to someone yesterday who was telling me about a business that got like $1.5 billion in tax cuts last year alone. And then you look at the average family, and when you compare what little you get with the fact that you have a much higher probability of losing your health care because they have eliminated the mandate, and then you have to have a Social Security cut or a Medicare cut, people understand that the arithmetic doesn't work, and they understand that this is hurting them. And the reason why I think we're making progress, Bill, is that a lot of folks did vote for Donald Trump who voted for Barack Obama. They voted for him because they were looking for change, but they were looking for change that's going to make their life better, not worse. And if you have that opioid addicted relative, your life isn't getting better under this president. If you're trying to organize a union, the fire questioner, they want to make it harder to organize a union. He's still building his businesses with foreign steel, and he tries to tell steel workers that he's got their back. And so a big part of this, I think, ma'am, is we have to be out there organizing and telling our story. And our story happens to be the truth. It ain't fake news.
Question here? Yeah, lots of hands. So let's get the questions sharp and.
Sure. Hi, Tom. First of all, Chris Liu wanted me to say hello to you. He's your former Deputy Secretary at Labor, and apparently will be on your radio show tomorrow.
Chris Liu is my guest at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning at BillPressShow.com.
So Chris Liu wanted me to say hi to you.
Good to see you.
The question I have for you is looking back on the 2016 election, the African-American turnout was lower for Hillary Clinton than it was for Barack Obama. What is the plan to reach out to the African-American community for 2018 and 2020 so that turnout is higher?
Sure. Well, let me talk about 2017 because we immediately addressed that issue. Our African-American voters are our most loyal constituency as Democrats, and we all too frequently took them for granted. And that, frankly, was a shame on us moment. And that is why when we talk about an every state strategy and we talk about every zip code counts, we mean it. That's why we organized in Alabama. And the linchpin of Doug Jones's success was African-American voters, African-American women, in particular, 98% of whom voted for Doug. Our investments in Atlanta, Georgia, and Charlotte, North Carolina are two other examples of investments in African-American women who are now mayors of those great cities. And you look at our investments in our state parties. We made a recent investment in Georgia, running up to the statewide elections, in rural African-American voter engagement. In Wisconsin, we made investments to help organize voters of color in Milwaukee because we underperformed there. We can never again, and those are two examples of many that I can give you. We never should have taken any community for granted. Our most loyal constituency, that was just terrible, and that's why we have redoubled our investments, and we will continue to do so.
Mm-hmm. Your question here, please.
Hi, Tom, thank you. I have a question about, I liked your message about our being one big family and all working together. And I just wanted to get your views on what recently happened in Texas, where the DCCC ran an ad against a progressive candidate who was very popular in Texas, which caused a lot of backlash and I think turned off a lot of Democrats. And so I was wanted to ask you, how can we avoid that moving forward in other primaries?
Sure. Well, I wouldn't have done that. I don't think that was prudent. And I look at Virginia as the best example of how to do things right. We had a spirited primary for governor. And frankly, there was some hand-wringing. People were wondering, oh my God, is this going to be a redo of 2016? And it turned out that two candidates ran a high road campaign. They talked about the issues. They talked about their visions, and they agreed on most of the issues. And the result was record turnout. People felt like everyone got a fair shake, and that record turnout in June led to record turnout in November and wide sweeping victories. So I don't begrudge any campaign committee for endorsing candidates in primaries. I think the best practice is endorse and then don't attack the other candidate and let the cards fall where they may. We, as a general matter at the DNC, don't endorse in contested primaries. What we do is we build the infrastructure so that whoever wins can hit the ground running.
Mm-hmm. Question here?
Yeah, thank you. By the way, I'm from Philadelphia, so I love an underdog story.
Amen.
Come November this year, what will the Democrats' message be on immigration?
Well, I believe that our immigrant history, I would say our message right now is, our immigrant tradition is what has always made America great. And dreamers, I used to be the board chair of an organization called Casa Maryland, served on the board for many years. As an immigrant myself, this is very personal. And these attacks on immigrants, immigrant baiting is not a new thing in our nation's journey to form a more perfect union. And the good news is that folks who've done it have inevitably lost in the long run. And they've lost because people have stood up. And I'm proud of our Democratic Party standing up and saying our dreamers are every bit as American as my U.S.-born children. I'm proud that we're the party that supports comprehensive immigration reform and supports the fact that we should be continuing to recognize that immigrants have made this country great since the founding of our nation.
Do you see some backlash there that with all the talk about support for the Dreamers, that Democrats have not been able to deliver?
Well, Democrats have not been able to deliver because we don't have enough Democrats in Congress. I mean, let's make sure we remember what happened. Barack Obama implemented DACA. It was legal. I was working there. We had many opinions. Then Donald Trump created a faux crisis by saying it wasn't legal and I'm going to set an arbitrary deadline. A number of courts have said it is legal and you did it wrong. And they created that crisis hoping that some people would say, oh, it's a pox on all your house. It's all your fault. And frankly, that was the strategy of the Republicans. They are hoping that people will look back, Bill, and say, nothing's gotten done. It's everybody's fault. And I feel very passionate about this one because we passed comprehensive bipartisan immigration reform in 2014 in the Senate. And why did it get defeated in the House? It never came up for a vote because the Tea Party holds that caucus hostage. That's why it didn't get voted on. You fast forward or rewind to 2009, there was a vote on the DREAM Act and it failed because of Republican opposition. So we have to keep fighting for this and we have to keep reminding people, and again, this is an example of so many issues, gun violence reduction, the DREAM Act, so many issues where for me, the remedy is to elect more Democrats because we've got to get there. There's a census issue coming up, the 2020 census, and they want to ask questions in that census that are designed to make sure people don't participate. Shame on them. We have a cure for that. Take over the House and take over the Senate and put riders in appropriation bills that prevent them from doing that. That's why this election is so darn important. There's so many issues at stake. Our identity as a nation is at stake.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Back here. Yeah. And
hi,
get
it's
as many of you in as we can. Yes, sir.
thank you. 3 questions.
Uh-oh.
Looking back at how
Quick
we
ones.
ended up having to bail out Wall Street and bail out the insurance companies, do you think that we're in the middle of an oligarchy like I do? That's number 1. Number 2, do you think we can ever get rid of Citizens United? And number 3, what do you think about term limits?
My memory,
I was going to,
the bailout.
I'll help you out.
Well, let me talk.
the
The
bailout
second
first.
question. I mean, Citizens United and partisan and racial gerrymandering are the 2 darkest forces that have put our democracy at risk. And we need to never give up in our efforts to overturn Citizens United. And one of the best ways to do that is, again, put Democrats in Congress, put Democrats in charge, put Democrats in the White House. The Wall Street reforms, your question triggers an immediate observation of mine, which is that it is unbelievable to me the lack of memory of this Congress. They want to pull back the Wall Street reforms from 2009. I was at the tip of the spear in the foreclosure crisis, and the notion that you want to give banks breaks again makes no sense to me. And your final question was about term limits. I think the best term limit is to vote folks out of office. And I think we ought to vote a lot of people out of office this year.
That's a good start.
Participation.
I want to come back over here to be fair. Yes, on the side a little bit. Right. There's a microphone right here. Yeah.
Coming back to your comment about the 2020 census, are the Democrats doing anything to try to make sure the administration puts a decent amount of resources into the count? Everything I'm seeing is they're not. which means there's going to be a lot of undercounting, and the people most likely to be not counted as a result are minorities.
Absolutely, and that's why I say we have time to fix this by winning in 2018. Because when you win, I can tell you from the appropriation cycle, that is your leverage point. And when we win, we have the ability to make sure that we are fully funding these efforts. This is critical because this, again, is one of those things that has 10 years of impact. So reason number 48, if you didn't need all reasons already, why we need to come out and vote.
We just have time for maybe a couple more quick ones so we can get the chairman to CNN.
Really quick, what are you doing about paper ballots, making sure, what's the DNC doing to make sure that all this effort is nothing if we don't get our votes counted.
Amen. And we have a voter protection operation that, and one of the things we're fortifying is our voter protection operation everywhere, because I think it's so. We tend to have a 3-month sprint. You hire people or you get people to volunteer 3 months before an election, when you should have a 12-month-a-year voter protection operation that's having conversations about paper ballots. It's having conversations about debold and broader ballot integrity issues, and doing that early so that you can put the necessary pressure on, because these are judgments that state elections officials have to make. And if we're not applying the pressure in every state, then the consequences can be catastrophic. It's happening in some states better than others, and the problem is a lot of elections officials, they're elected, and so elections have consequences. And I can tell you in Maricopa County, Arizona, I spent a lot of time there because I took on a guy named Joe Arpaio, and he's the former sheriff, I'm happy to report. And there's also a former elections administrator who was terrible and we had to deal with. And we discovered when the new one came in, the Democrat, that there were something like 40,000 voter registration forms gathering dust in a closet because they never bothered to do anything about it. That's why elections matter.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Yeah.
I'm sure you know that in Virginia, something like maybe 14 or 13 of the new Democratic legislators were women.
11 out of 15.
Okay, 11 out of 15. I thought.
And all 15 they replaced were white men.
Okay. 9 of the, yeah. I think something like 9 or 10 of the 11 were recruited, trained, and supported by an organization of Democratic women leaders in the state. I'm wondering, what is the DNC doing to support that model elsewhere?
Yeah, I think there have been some great organizations that have been coming around across the country, and we've been working together with them. There's also been, there was an organization in Virginia called Win Virginia that was helping these candidates when they were running, and we work very closely with Win Virginia. I welcome these, it's not just Emily's List.
There's a group called Run for Something.
Run for Something. There's Higher Heights, recruiting African American and other women of color. There's so many organizations, and so what we've been doing is making sure we're working within the ecosystem, so we're not duplicating effort in states where it's already been done, but we're supporting them. And then when there's holes, we're helping to fill in states where we need more work on that. But I'm thrilled, and those candidates, the 11 women who won, are spectacular, and the 12th woman who lost in a coin flip is equally spectacular. So we were almost 12 for 16, which is what I leave you with. The most important thing you can come out of this doing is getting people to vote. Our signature initiative of 2018 is iwillvote.com. We want to get 50 million voters out there. Look at the data on the drop-off between a presidential and a midterm. We've got to prevent that. The Republicans are hoping that we stay home. And you know what? We haven't been staying home so far, and we're not going to stay home. And we're working with all of our partners across the country, and I hope you'll be partners in this effort to get people out to vote everywhere.
I don't think we've had so many questions for any guests since I've been here anyhow, so I'm sorry we have to cut it short, but it is election night. Mr. Chairman, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Sorry that I have to run out. Thank you for your leadership. Phil,
Thank you.